Well, it is a role in which I provide the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly and member states of the United Nations with information about the situation of human rights in Myanmar, an analysis of the situation, and recommendations that they might consider to take in light of these developments in Myanmar. So that's my job. I'm gathering information. There's a lot of things going on the ground. I work to get that information as much as I possibly can, and also to meet with not only members of the Human Rights Council, but other member states to engage with them, provide them with additional information, and offer my thoughts and recommendations of what might happen.
Can you briefly share your research on the current situation in Myanmar after the military coup?
Well, things continue to deteriorate. I'm afraid to say the level of violence is continuing to escalate. There are at least 737 people who've been murdered by the regime, among them 46 children. We know that over 3,000 people have been arbitrarily detained, including the president of the country and the state councilor, Aung San Suu Kyi. And the nature of the violence, they have been increasing their use of weapons. They're now using weapons of war against people, even in these urban areas. We've seen rocket-propelled grenades. We've seen the use of machine guns, snipers. We're seeing shoot to kill orders being carried out on the streets. We're also seeing troops going through neighborhoods. So we're talking not just about firing on protesters, but now walking through neighborhoods, destroying property, and then killing people, anyone that they may find walking on the street or going about their business. And now we're finding that they're literally shooting into homes. And so the death of these children, we're finding that are coming as a result of soldiers walking through neighborhoods and just firing at random through windows into people's homes. So the violence at the hands of the military, the brutality being committed against the people of Myanmar continues to escalate. I'm very sorry to say. There is a clear pattern here. These are not random acts of violence in this or that location in Myanmar. These types of attack are uniform, they're systematic, and it's very clear that these attacks are being carried out in a command structure, and that orders are being given to troops around the country to conduct these kind of brutal attacks. Now, there are some people in Myanmar, of course, that would like nothing better than to see a military response by the international community and the UN Security Council. That is not going to happen. I think it's really important that the violence de-escalate, not escalate, that everything that we do should have two purposes. One, to have maximum impact on the military junta, but minimum impact on the people of Myanmar. And any kind of violence, any kind of military response could be absolutely catastrophic. Already there's been too many losses of life, 737 at least. But the possibility of even a greater catastrophe with a military action, I think, makes it very clear that that's something that we should not be engaging in. R2P calls for a number of things to be considered to protect people. You know, peacekeeping forces would be one of them, and there are a range of others, a whole range of others. But I think, as I mentioned before, I think that it's really important for the violence to be de-escalated and not escalated. The deployment of troops could have catastrophic consequences for innocent people. We've seen already the loss of too many, at least 737 people have been killed. If there is a military escalation and a military response ensues, and you're talking about, listen, we're talking about an extraordinarily brutal regime. They're capable of just about anything. We've seen what's happened in Rakhine State in 2017 against the Rohingya community, extreme brutality. So there's no limits to what they could do. And if there is an escalation of violence, then they would unleash even greater horrors on the people of Myanmar, and even more would suffer. So I think that R2P, of the options that R2P has available, I think it's important for those options that will have the least possible damage to the country and would have the least lethal consequences on the people of Myanmar. Those are the options that we should be deploying, not an escalation, not a military response.
What is the solution, do you think, for Myanmar's current problems?
The solution lies in the people of Myanmar. They, in the final analysis, they will determine the future of their country, but they need help. They need assistance. They need support. So they're asking the international community, for example, just as they are boycotting anything associated with the Myanmar military, they are appealing to the world to make certain that there's the revenue that the junta depends on for its brutality is stopped, that we do everything possible to stop revenue flows, to stop the flow of weapons into the hands of the military, that we do everything possible to hold them accountable. For example, reference to the International Criminal Court for investigations and prosecutions of these brutalities. These are all things that the people of Myanmar are asking the international community to do, and how they believe that we can support them.
What can the United Nations can do?
There are effective ways that we can provide the kind of principled response, action response that could make a difference. The reforms that the coup overturned occurred precisely because of international pressure and international sanctions. Now, the junta will say they're impervious to international pressure, that sanctions don't work, but we know that sanctions have worked in the past. What I think is important is that there be coordinated economic sanctions, that each country deploy the strongest possible level of sanctions against the junta, and that they then link up together so that working together in a coordinated fashion, they would have the greatest possible impact. There are upwards of 40 different types of sanctions that are out there. We need to coordinate them. We need to link them. We need to make them work together. That, I think, is extremely important. We need some diplomatic initiatives. The people of Myanmar and the elected leaders of Myanmar and the ethnic nationalities of Myanmar have come together to form a national unity government that reflects the will of the people. I think that it's really important for the international community to engage this national unity government. That if there are going to be discussions about Myanmar, it should include the people of Myanmar as represented by their national unity government. So these are steps that can be taken, that I believe should be taken, and it can have an impact.
You mentioned the importance of sanctions, right? But we have seen little impact so far, I think. And the military said they are not afraid of sanctions, and they have been sanctioned before already. And do you still believe the sanctions are effective?
Yes. First of all, don't believe what the junta says. Just see what they do, don't believe what they say. And we know that sanctions have had an impact on the junta. They've always said they don't work. They've always said that they're perfectly fine being isolated. But we know that that's not true. We know that the generals and those in their command below the highest ranks, I mean, they want to engage in international trade. They want to make money. They need to be able to supply this huge military. So they need resources to do that. They need money to do that. And if you cut off the revenue stream, then they can't make money, and then they can't supply their troops. So we know for a fact that sanctions have worked with this military. We know that the reforms that were overturned by this coup were precisely created as a result of and in reaction to sanctions. And we know that sanctions can work. At the very least, I believe it's important for governments to try to deploy whatever means necessary outside of a military intervention that could work. And I believe it's at least worth trying to exert maximum sanctions in a coordinated fashion.
You stated that arms embargoes are needed, and how many countries have imposed it so far, and is it effective?
Well, we know that there are upwards of 30 different countries who have over 30 who have some form of arms embargo on the military junta, and I certainly hope that number is going to grow. I'm also hoping that these embargoes would involve not just what you would consider to be, your obvious arms, weapons of the conventional weapons, but also technology, dual-use technology that can be used, that can be weaponized, including surveillance technology. So we're hoping that both weapons and then dual-use technology can also be a point of focus for countries with respect to embargoes on the military. If you look at the National Unity Government, it is made up of those who were elected by the people of Myanmar, that were chosen by the people of Myanmar, but it also includes a wide network of ethnic communities that make up the depth and breadth of this very diverse country, and they've reached out to many of these communities, and they've spoken specifically about how important it is to respect and stand with communities, including the Rohingya, calling them brothers and sisters. So these are very, very important steps forward. And so this is a government that is legitimate. It's linked to the people. It's reflecting the views of the people. So I believe that that governments should be engaging with the National Unity Government, listening to them, working with them, and that together we as an international community and the people of Myanmar can overcome this enormous obstacle.
In what way can the United Nations recognize NUG as the legitimate government of Myanmar? What steps are required?
Well, I think that the United Nations and I think all of its member states need to be working with the National Unity Government and engaging the National Unity Government. And anything that I can do to help and support and facilitate that, I would like to do. Now, every government is different. The United Nations has its structures and decision-making processes, and I leave it up to those leaders.
What is your prediction for Myanmar's future? Do you think the efforts both inside and outside of the Myanmar could make a difference?
I'm optimistic, and I know that may sound remarkable given the darkness that's descended on Myanmar with this brutal military regime. But I'm in awe of the people of Myanmar, particularly the young people, their courage, their tenacity, their creativity, their commitment. They're in this until they succeed, until they secure their country. And I can tell you that these young people are very determined. They've heard from their parents, their grandparents about what life is like under military dictatorship in Myanmar. They've had a taste of freedom, and they have no intention of going back to those dark days. The brutality of the junta has made the views of the people of Myanmar against the coup even stronger. So the coup has failed. The attempt to brutally repress the people of Myanmar has failed. And I believe that the people of Myanmar will prevail.